pretty excited about this because I want to talk to you today about the tale of two buckets. And I even brought a visual so you can see that we're talking about the two different buckets here. So in bucket number one, I've got things like my self-worth, my confidence, my value, my lovability, who I am, what I think of myself, and you know what I'm worthy of, what's available to me. In bucket number two, I have sort of the results of little games that I like to play. Some of them are actual games and some of them are goals that I set in my life, but this could be like how many points I score, or what my win-loss record is, or who I beat today or that day, or it could be my weight, or it could be how fast did I run a mile? It could be how much weight did I lift when I was working out? It could be how much money I'm making. It's all of these what I consider scorecards. So I've got two different buckets here. One is who I am, where I live from, what my character is, what my value is, and just my foundation of who Jake is. On the other, I've got my scoreboard, all my scoreboard stuff, the stuff I'm aiming at. And this is where I can kind of assess and evaluate how far I've come, how far I have to go based on these scores. But the key to this entire talk today is that there are two separate buckets. And that's what we want to get into as we sort of break this down. Because what happens is that we, on default, have a tendency to put them both into the same bucket. That we have thoughts like, I wrote some thoughts down here, I'll share with you. I'll have confidence when I weigh less. I'll have worth as a competitor once I win. My sacrifice will be validated once I'm successful. I'll be legitimate when I make $250,000 a year. I will get bucket one once I get bucket two. So that's sort of the default thinking that we have, is that somehow our scorecard has to be a certain value before we have worth, we're able to be loved, and we can be proud of ourselves and all of those things. And I want to give you a couple examples of how I know that's not the case. And the first one is Jim Carrey. He's got a great quote that I'm sure you've heard before. He says, "I wish that everyone could be rich and famous so they would know that's not the answer." And it's a great quote, and it's really insightful, especially coming from him because he is rich and famous. So on one hand, you could hear that and say, well, that's easy for you to say, Jim. You are rich and famous, and so sure, you can say that's not the answer. But on the other hand, he's rich and famous, and he knows that's not the answer. And so I could always say, like, well, if I was, if I have more money, if I have more acceptance, if more people liked me, then I could have worth, then I'm lovable, then I have value. But he's like, no, I wish that everyone could have what I have so they would know that's not the case. The other one that was super interesting to me, and maybe you guys have seen this on Netflix, is the movie Free Solo, where it sort of documents Alex Honnold's successful attempt to climb El Capitan in Yosemite Valley without any climbing gear. He just climbed it with no safety whatsoever. And as you watch that story unfold, you realize that he is placing on himself perfection or die. That's the pressure. And so it goes through it chronicles it in the story, all the little places on the climb where in all of his practice climbs, he sometimes makes errors and sometimes doesn't, knowing that when the ropes are off, if he makes the error, he's dead. There's no way to recover. And so he needs to execute this climb perfectly. And he does, which is why it makes a good movie. But what's interesting to me is I think about how often I've said to myself, and maybe you've caught yourself saying to yourself, if I did it perfectly, then I could have bucket one. Perfection is the key. If my scorecard in this bucket was perfection, then I could be proud of myself. Then I could be lovable. Then I could have my worth. But what's interesting is that he does it. He does it perfectly. He climbs the mountain perfectly. And they show him, and the cameras are following him. The camera crew's all stoked. They were terrified to even film this thing because they really like him and care about him, and they know the danger that he's in. And he's up on top, and he's done it. He's achieved as much as human can achieve. He achieved perfection. And you watch his response, and the joy that he experiences on the top of the mountain is what I would describe as less joy than I experience on a random Tuesday laughing with Whit about what we have planned for the day, or what we, just said on a live, or what someone said on Facebook. Like, it's the level of joy, just it wasn't the key. His perfection in bucket 1 was not the key to his joy, or his perfection in bucket 2 was not the key to his joy that comes in bucket 1. And so just sort of interesting awareness to see how all this stuff plans out or plays out. And it really makes sense because all of the stuff, money, your weight, how many friends you have, how fast you are, how strong you are, how much you accomplish, how much authority you have, all of these things are C's. They're all circumstances. And no circumstance, as we know, can cause a feeling. So you've got a bunch of circumstances in here of this bucket, and you're hoping to get the feelings that go in this one, but circumstances don't cause feelings. Only your thoughts can cause your feelings, right? And so you paint yourself into this place where you're actually kind of doing it backwards. So the question is, if bucket 2 is not the path to bucket 1, how the heck do I get to dip into bucket 1? How do I get in here? Because I want this joy, I want this peace, I want to feel valuable, worthy, and loved. How do I get into this bucket? And the truth is, you just decide. You just decide to go into the bucket. You decide to start taking the thoughts captive. All the thoughts that we read before, that if I weighed this amount, then I would be lovable. If I made this much money, then I would be worthy. All that stuff, you decide to kind of break up with those thoughts. You're like, you're out. I love you, but I'm moving on. Kind of thing. It's not you, it's me. And we break up with those thoughts and go forward and start embracing these ideas that were valuable now. You start to operate from this place that you already have these things because you've just decided that you do. But then once you've decided you're just going to live from here, then you aim at bucket 2. But you're doing it from a place that's clean. You do it from a place where it's not the key to your value. You have your value, therefore you have the fuel to do what's necessary to get into that second bucket. So hopefully that makes sense. The greatest example I've ever seen of how this plays out, or at least recently, is a beach volleyball player named Natalie Cook. She, in 1996, started working towards the Olympics in the year 2000. So she's got 4 years to train, 4 years of process before her result will be measured. And she really became obsessed with the idea that she's going to win gold. And she started telling people, I'm going to win a gold. And so she describes how she would see gold shoes. And she'd be like, those are the shoes I want. And she would see a gold purse. Oh, that's the purse I want. Gold shirts. She even had a gold toaster, she said. And what she's describing is that every place that she looked and she saw gold, she's like, that's me. That's for me. That's what I want. Is I want to live in this place. And so her friends, family, teammates, people that care about her are kind of like saying, hey, Natalie, you got to slow down with this a little bit. You're really wrapping a lot of your identity up in this result of this gold medal. And she tried to take their advice. She's like, yeah, maybe they're right. Like, I really am. I'm getting very results focused. And so she tried to kind of tone it down, but she describes that she couldn't. That she kept on. It was just calling to her. She saw herself as gold. And so she continues to train for the 4 years. She goes to the 2000 Olympics in Sydney, and sure enough, she wins gold, which I find completely uninteresting. I don't care about that part at all. That's the result. I'm really interested in the process. So in some interviews afterwards, the interviewer was kind of recapping this journey she went on where she was so obsessed with getting all the gold stuff and telling people she's going to win gold and so in belief that gold is coming her way. And the interviewer asked her, so what if you had won silver? What if you had taken home the silver medal? And she said, this is the greatest line ever. Bruno, I'm glad you're on here for this one because she's a beach volleyball player. She said, I would have painted it gold. She said I would have painted it gold. Because it was never about the medal, is what she said. It was about living into her gold medal self for the 4 years leading up to that. It was about training at a gold medal level. It was about seeing herself as worthy of gold. That was the whole idea, and I don't think it could have been any more clear. I love that. I mean, it's like, that's what I want on a t-shirt. I would have painted it gold. It's just such a beautiful idea that it's not the result. It wasn't bucket 2 that was leading her towards the worthiness in bucket 1. She's like, no, it was all about bucket 1 the whole time. The whole time. And yes, did she hit her bucket 2? She sure did. Probably because she was valuing bucket 1 so much the whole time. But that's, to be honest, really neither here nor there. It's about who she became in those 4 years between 1996 and 2000. And if you follow Natalie Cook right now, you'll find out that she still preaches the same. That she's still really coaching people up about the value of competing, the value of going after your Olympic dreams, the value of going after taking the journey, setting out on this thing, not whether you arrive, not what medal you get, when you get there, that's not the point, that it's not about bucket 2, it's about bucket 1. So this is a really key feature to looking at your experience of life as you go after goals, is realizing that they're not the same bucket. They're 2 separate buckets. One has your value, one has your scorecard. And it's difficult to know, are you combining them? Are you putting 2 before 1? Is your thinking clean? When you got like, okay, I know bucket 1 is my stuff, I know I have worth, and now I'm gonna go after big, great things because I've got big dreams. That's when we know your bucket's clean. But there's this question, how do I know? How do I know if I'm operating with clean thinking? And my favorite question to check on that is, do you think it's better there than here? Because if you think it's better there than here, you're confused. Because I think it was actually, it's funny as you talk about gold medal, I think it was in Cool Runnings. They're talking about winning the gold medal. I think that's what, I hope I have the right movie. You guys can check out on this if you see this. I think in Cool Runnings is where their coach tells them, if you weren't enough without the gold medal, you're not enough with the gold medal. Like it's gotta happen before. You can't go through this journey thinking it's better there than here, or you're just gonna have a miserable experience on the way. So the huge secret to this whole thing is that going after bucket 2 is a great idea. Having aspirations and dreams and goals and trying to live bigger and trying to get beyond your comfort zone and going for this big stuff, it is what makes life so much fun to do that. And there's nothing about me that says you shouldn't be going after this bucket 2. The secret is that you don't go after bucket 2 in order to get bucket 1. You go after bucket 2 from bucket 1. That's the key to the whole thing. Hope you guys enjoy that. Hope that helps out. If you're not watching this right now, I hope you're watching Whitney, because she's live at the same time, just right over there. This house is crazy right now. But I sure had fun. I'm glad you guys stopped by, and I will check in with you next week.